We had a complaint, by the way.
Oh.
John St. John.
John St. John.
Hi, Neale and Kev. Loving the podcast and your respective YouTube channels. It starts out really nicely, actually. Superb banter. See, it's going good. I moved from Nikon to Fuji in usage and can't see why I'd go back. Kevin's rundown on his setups, absolutely perfect on your F16 .click site. Invaluable. However, there you go. Neale, you love the spoken word, so I'm going to go on a mini rant. Nikon, as in Nick on, not Nikon. We aren't American, and I'm not sure why this American pronunciation has crept in. For decades, we've said Nikon. I believe that the Japanese pronounce N-I as Nikon. Don't dumb down our pronunciation, even if talking to those in other countries. Oh, John! Having written the above, I feel bad for moaning, when really this show should have nothing but praise. But Nikon really grips my... I won't say the last word. You see, it's like the word tog, isn't it? Do you like the word tog when people talk about photographers?
I absolutely hate that.
Yeah, some people really don't.
Yeah.
But I've always been a bit sort of like chameleon-like communicator. My wife tells me this, you know, if we're out and somebody's speaking a bit East End-like and all the rest of it, I'll like slip into that because I think they feel more comfortable. You know, if you're, I posh it up for well-heeled clients. I will talk much, much more in a rounded sense. And Aussie Lil, I mean, Sam thought it was funny when we were travelling across Australia last summer and I started speaking like an Aussie, so that sounds ridiculous. Stop doing that. So, and in America, I spend a bit of time in America. And,
you have got so many talents. It's incredible.
Smooth out my words. I love the way Americans talk. I love that. So I'd like to be, I think I'd have been a good American.
I think part of the problem is, like, you know, these days there's so much stuff on YouTube and Netflix and everything, and people are growing up with an American accent. Foreigners,
but
like
we always
Europeans.
get chameleon-like in the way that we talk, don't we? We mimic.
It's interesting if you speak to Europeans that can speak good English, and they nearly always have an American accent.
That's true, yeah.
Because most of the stuff they see is where they learn their English from is in America.
You know, they need to watch more Jeremy Kyle. Maybe not.
The FujiCast.
Right, hello, welcome to the FujiCast, episode 20. We made it to two round tens. Very good. Those that said they weren't sure it would make it.
20?
Yeah,
Did you
20.
just say 20?
Yeah, we're on 20.
Wow.
This is episode 20.
Wow.
20.
We should have had a cake.
We should have done. I think we've eaten far... Well, I've eaten far too much.
But when we get to 52, we need to do something special for
Why
52.
52? Oh, 52 weeks in a year, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
You know what I just said about your talents?
That's not one of them. This week, thank you to our friends at Simpler Straps for letting us give away a camera strap to our favourite email question of the week. They are military grade, rugged. Go to simpler.us, simplr.us, if you'd like to know more about them. There's your questions as well about anything Fujifilm or photography related, technical, artistic, business, personal, when you send them through to click@fujicast.co.uk. And today we'll hear the second part, the two-part series from the wives. Now, last week we heard from Gemma. Were you okay?
Yes. Well, we're just. I'm just speaking to my lawyer right now.
She wasn't that bad.
No, bless her. She's good as gold.
Yeah. Well, I've no idea what's going to happen this week because I won't be actually editing this. This is this weird time thing again. Yeah. I won't be editing this week's show because Sam, my wife, is taking the questions on this one, and I'm not supposed to hear until this goes out, i.e. when you're hearing it at this moment.
Is that Sam over there with the suitcase just getting into the back of a taxi?
So if you're thinking, what are you talking about? It was this thing that we did about, it was called Photography the Other Half. It's about living with a photographer and being in a photography business and relationship. And if you're out there wondering, is a strange mini-series. And as I said last week, even a touch self-indulgent. Well, we're going to address two subjects. For those that are thinking about going full-time in this photography business, what your partner may be wondering or what they're thinking. And it's good to get behind the scenes, I think, and talk to those that have been through this. And we've both been through this, haven't we, Kev? We both left reasonably good jobs for the uncertainty that can be photography.
Yeah, very turbulent.
Yeah. And secondly, for those that are in the job at the moment and wondering what their partners are thinking, then we thought this might be quite interesting as well. So the second part today. Right. That's what's on the show. Questions. You go first.
I have a question from Edgar. Short and sweet. I have the XT1. Whenever I focus, either the back button or the shutter. Whenever I said it was short but sweet. Whenever I focus, either the back button or the shutter, with a back button or the shutter, I suppose I should say, the camera refocuses when I finally take the shot. It's been very frustrating. Any help would be appreciated. And the answer is just to put the camera in manual focus mode on the front.
Well, sometimes you get that situation, put it in manual focus, and everything leaps into the film mode where you're seeing everything with peaking on it.
Yeah, so focus peak highlighting will only work in manual focus mode.
Yeah.
So you can just switch your peaking off.
Switch that off, yeah.
Yeah, but the back button focusing, it's not really true, especially on the XT1. It's not really true back button focusing. It's a bit of a fudge. So put the camera into manual focus mode, use the AFL button on the back, and that divorces the shutter button from autofocusing.
And that's the way that should work.
That's the way it'll work. Yep, perfect.
Okay. Hi, Kevin and Neale. The first thing I do now every Monday is listen to the latest podcast of yours, so thank you for them. I'd like to enter the competition and to win a ticket to the Fuji X Weddings Conference in Bath. We haven't talked about that. We didn't talk about it last week, which is terrible. And we've kept this competition sort of rolling for a few weeks.
Yes.
So there's plenty of time to, if you do want to enter to be at the Fuji X Weddings Conference for free, then you can send us that. There'll only be one ticket. So bear that in mind. There's only one freebie going out here.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to send it, make sure you tell us in your questions that you'd like to enter that competition. My question is, if you had, we must come back and talk a bit more about X Weddings, by the way. My question is that if you had £1,000 to spend on your photography business, what is the best use for your money? Cool, that's a really open question there. If you could buy anything except a ticket to the X Weddings Conference in Bath, we're going to, put that bit on top. Cause
no.
That's
buy a ticket.
That's cool. No, I was going to say put that bit on top because you need £1,000 for the gear. Put that bit on the top for your marketing and all the knowledge.
So who is this, by the way? You didn't read the name out.
Oh, sorry, this is Ali from Dundee.
Ali. So we got £1,000.
£1,000. It's burning a hole in your chinos.
Yeah, I think I'd have to pay some tax. Sadly.
No, you've got to spend it on photography gear.
Okay, well, if I had £1,000, oh, this is a tough question. If you gave me £1,000 right now, and I had to spend it today, what would I do?
On something photography related.
What would I do?
Is there a lens that you particularly want, or a flash unit? Definitely not. A camera bag? No, that's.
It's really hard. We've got the GFX 100 sat here on the desk with us right in front of us now.
You've got a tenth the money you need for that.
Exactly. I was just saying. £1,000. You go first.
Well, I this is a bit of a luxury because it's something I don't necessarily need, but it would be really nice to have it bolted in place for some of the YouTube things. To just have I like an XT2, not because I can't quite afford the XT3 with that grand, but I'll get an XT. Well,
for
I'll get
filming.
a used XT2 for filming. Yeah,
get an XT30 instead.
Would you?
Yeah. As long as you didn't want to record for more than like 5-minute clips.
No, this is like 20-minute clips.
Yeah, you're doing XT2 then.
So I'm thinking about that would be nice. I'd spend some money. I'd have to buy a used one, wouldn't I? Still.
No, I think they're about £800 now.
Are they now?
They're still Fujifilm still sell the XT2. It's not. They haven't discontinued it. So you can still get them new or second hand. I don't know. You know what? Did you? I saw.
Ali's just said actually though. She has said it doesn't have to be kit. It could be mentoring. Oh, sorry, Ali. This Ali, I apologise, and instantly, this is just the reason I didn't do so well at school. I did not read the end of the question. Mentoring, website, training. Oh, so the Fuji X conference can play into this.
I know what I would do then.
Just anything to improve your photography or business skills and ultimately your profit.
I know what I would do.
Yeah.
I would go on a Magnum course workshop.
Would you?
Yeah, although they're probably more than £1,000 because they're usually in Japan and stuff like that. But yeah, I would. Somebody like Matt Stewart, I'd love to spend a day with him. That's definitely what I would do.
Ali's asked a really cheeky second question, but it does give us a chance to talk about the X Weddings Conference. Second question, why should I go to the Fuji X Weddings Conference over any of the others?
That is a really good question. Here's a couple of answers.
Ali, you've been testing us here.
Yeah, here's a couple of questions, a couple of answers. One, because I'm organising it. And
do you get to have beer with him?
Two, I like to think it's a bit different to the others, and I've been to many of the others, and they're all very, very good. But this is, I task the speakers, and Neale will qualify this. I task the speakers with it. I want them to be educational. I don't want them to stand there and say, my life is great, and whooper and holler, and
this is not an awesomeness brigade.
This is not parade. This isn't woohoo, smash that wedding, awesome. And so I want it to be educational. And it's around the Fujifilm community, the Ex-Weddings group on Facebook, which I founded I don't know how many years ago. So it's a little bit about giving something back also, really. Last year, I can tell you that I made a loss on it. This year, I'm kind of hoping to make a break-even point at least. So it's definitely not about lining my pockets, to a certain extent. It's nice. It's nice people. We cap it to about 55 people. It's not a big conference. It's not anonymous. It's fun. It's fully interactive in terms of the microphone gets handed around and everything. And I think we've got some really good speakers again this year. And it's just that really. It's definitely not for me to get £1,000 to spend on a new camera, though. That's for sure, because it won't happen.
I think in particular it's very important. Mentoring is even more important in those turbulent times, because it's very easy to sit back and think, well, I'll just let this time pass. I think going to hear new ideas. I always come away from every single talk I've been to thinking, that's good. I can actually twist that a little bit and do that in my way, and that's why I think it's good. They're just, well, you know my thoughts. Yeah.
Well, I think that, I honestly think that, I spoke to somebody a couple of months ago, actually, a photographer, and he said that, the industry is full of people giving workshops and training and conferences and everything. And, nobody can teach me anything now. I've been around too long. And I thought, you arrogant, egotistical.
Hang on. Warning. Kev's about to say something.
Idiot.
Oh, right.
Because you can always learn.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Always.
Absolutely.
And even if you are the best at something, you can still learn.
Do you know who I saw talking on a YouTube video earlier this week was Charlie Waite, the landscape genius. And he was talking to a YouTuber that I follow whose name I just can't remember at the moment, and I should do because he's such a nice guy himself. However, he was talking on this YouTube video about he was going to spend the day with Charlie Waite. He was incredibly nervous, and he met up with Charlie. He's a landscape YouTuber. I'm not a landscape photographer, so it just interests. I think landscape it interests me. And when he met up with Charlie, I thought Charlie was such a nice guy and willing to share everything. And that's what I think when you go to well-organised, well-oiled, in terms of how they work, conferences, where you're really learning stuff and you're not just being taken on this wave of awesomeness. And I'm being careful because there are some, you might say, oh, you're talking about X. No, I'm not, because, I think all organisers work to do this. When you're being taken along on this great educative journey, then hopefully you'll come away feeling like I did after I watched Charlie Waite share what was great about landscape photography. And that's why I think conferences and mentoring conferences are very good.
Yeah.
Anyway, your question.
This is from Sean Johnston. Hey, Kevin and Neale. I'm a hobbyist, aspiring documentary-style wedding photographer and a recent Fuji convert. Stumbling across this podcast was basically ideal for me. Nice. It was really good to hear that you both got your start by shooting weddings for your friends at the first, before moving on to paid bookings, as that's exactly my route into it as well. I have my first few paid booking inquiries coming in right now and have a couple of questions about how to handle it. First, how did you manage your clients' expectations for those first paid bookings? obviously I'm charging less than a lot of others in my area, and prospective clients are able to see shots from the 2 weddings I have shot for friends, so they can see the standard of work I can produce. But I still worry that they're expecting something much more than experienced. Secondly, do you find yourself shooting the cliche detail shots? Of course, the documentary style is all about naturally capturing the day, but in your experience, do clients still want to expect the classic shots of ring shoes, the hanging of the dress, and so on and so on? So first of all, Sean, because you are just entering this wonderful world of documentary wedding photography, I shall be sending you I won't be, but Simpler Straps will be sending you a rugged military grade strap, as Neale would say, because it's a good question. And in terms of the first point about the pricing and client expectations, ultimately, if you're honest and you just tell them exactly as it is, you show them the pictures you've taken, you're honest, you have if they are paying, you should have a contract, and in that contract there should be a clause that basically says that they understand your work, your style, and they're okay with that, so they can't come back and say we just didn't like the pictures. And away you go. And yes, we did all start somewhere, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with charging lower rates to get yourself your foot on the ladder, as long as you kind of keep climbing up that ladder. So yeah, don't overstress it. Don't worry about it. I think we said this a couple of weeks ago. Just get on and do it. Don't let these little minor negative thoughts in your mind stop you from doing these things. It's really important.
Absolutely not.
Detail shots. So things like classic shots. So by classic shots of rings, shoes, hanging in the dress, and so on, I never, ever, ever, ever do any of that.
Do you not?
No, never.
Is that? See, I do, and I think that can still be a documentary of.
Yes,
because it's stuff.
Absolutely, and that's what I was going to caveat it with. It doesn't mean that you can't take those pictures and it still be a documentary.
It's only when you start hoofing around the place trying to find an oak tree to hang a dress from.
Yeah.
That I think then you're thinking, well, does the average intelligent person normally hang their dress from a tree?
Yeah. It always makes me laugh, the shot of the rings, mostly, because it's like, I see these and they're beautiful pictures, don't get me wrong, of these rings in a box or whatever on a windowsill where the light is perfect, etc. And I'm like, what is that picture actually for? Because those rings are going to be on their fingers for the rest of their lives. They're going to see that ring more than they're going to see their partner. They're going to see those rings more than they're going to see anything else in the entire world. Do they need a picture of them? I can understand like taking a picture of the naming board or something, the seating plan, especially if they've been creatively done.
Yeah, normally they've had some sort of creative input to them.
Yeah, because that's going to go.
They're never going to see it.
It's going to go in the attic, isn't it? Let's face it, or it's going to be thrown away after 10 years. Yeah. So, but rings, that always makes me chuckle. But that's just me.
It's the same thing with regard putting them as the focal point of the start of your website. When you start with a picture of rings or some shoes, it says absolutely nothing about the day. And even though I think we differ here, that I think they're important.
I take the
stuff of the day. They're not necessarily a focal part of the day.
Pictures of all of those things, but I do them throughout the day when I get an opportunity, although not the hanging of the dress. So in my little arsenal of things that I must do during the day, I always get a picture of the back of the bride's dress, but it's when she's wearing it, and I remember to try and get a shot of it. The rings, one of the trickiest shots to get, but one I always still try and get, is during the first dance, when the groom has his arm over the back of the bride's shoulder and vice versa. So I'll spin around until I can see the ring, assuming they're not doing something like Uptown Funk and dancing all over the place. But if they're doing your normal bridal shuffle, then I'll use
Grip and grin.
I'll use my 56 1.2 to try and get a shot of the ring there. Shoes, well, honestly, shoes. Should I tell you what I think about shoes?
Shoes are shoes.
The shoes.
Kev, no, people spend a lot of time choosing these shoes. Careful now, careful.
No, listen, I honest to God, and brides, if you're listening to me, please don't spend £2,000 on a pair of shoes and then wear a dress that covers them up all day. What is that? What is the point? I just do not get it.
Your Louboutins can't be seen.
What? I really do not get it. Honestly, I do not get it. But I am a man. I appreciate that. But I've recently noticed, a handful of brides kind of wearing pretty funky.
I saw silver DMs a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Silver DMs. I like those.
And that's all cool. And
actually, I laughed with I had a joke with a bride that was wearing the silver DM. She said I was going to paint them red underneath, so everybody thought I had Louboutins, but she didn't. Right, we're going to come back with more of your questions. Second part now in our Meet the Other Halves thing. Last week we met Gemma, Kevin's other half. And actually, all said and done, she obviously has a great respect and admiration for what you do. I, of course, feel like you said last week when you said I feel like the groom who's just about to hear his best man talk and he's not quite sure what's going to come out of his mouth. And I feel a similar way now because you interviewed Sam. I'm obviously not going to hear this till this episode airs on Monday.
Well, what I will say is that you probably misunderstand the amount that you think she likes you.
Hold on, I think.
Warning.
No, not at all. Listen anyway, and you will soon find out. All right, so we have Sam, who is Neale's wife this week, and last week obviously he spoke to Gemma, my wife, and I still haven't really kind of got over that experience, I must admit. And Gemma said she was very nervous. You're not nervous, are you, Sam?
A little bit nervous.
A little bit nervous. So first thing off the bat, is it true that Neale has the biggest, hairiest microphone in all of Newbury?
I've not seen anyone else's microphone, so I don't think it's a fair question.
I've seen lots of Neale's microphones and they're all big and hairy. Anyway, so to be a little bit more serious, obviously the whole point of these little chats is to give the other half's viewpoint on being a wife of a photographer.
Yep.
Okay. And the
There's
idea,
probably an acronym for that, isn't there?
There probably is. Yeah, there probably is. And the idea is especially for the people who are just thinking about starting out, going professional, and the impact that might have on family life, etc.
Yep.
So thinking back to when did Neale start? When did he first become a photographer?
We were working together in another industry at the time, and it was very much a hobby, and then the hobby became more serious, and then it was actually one day he was given an ultimatum. Essentially, it's either drop your hobby and concentrate on your full-time business more, or your hobby needs to become your full-time business.
Did that ultimatum come from you?
No, not at all. It came from our boss at the time.
Okay.
And so it was pre-children. Yeah. Although we did have a mortgage, and so we were we still had responsibilities as such. But I suppose it was just one of those. Well, I'll go back a little bit. Actually, there'd been a Christmas which had been particularly stressful in terms of what he was doing previously, and so actually, it was that kind of time. Is there ever a good time for a leap of faith? I guess. So we thought, actually, let's just see what happens, give it a go. So I carried on working full time in the company that we were working in before, and then he sort of took that leap of faith. But when we first started the business, we would do anything we could to try and get just business through the door. So that was probably 15 years ago. So we would deliver leaflets at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. Any business opportunity we would take, and we always used to think that it was going to be the next big thing, and this was going to be the opportunity that would sort of launch the business. And sometimes things were great, and other times we'd be absolutely flogging ourselves. And we used to laugh because we'd make a pittance, really, and then we'd go and spend all the profits on curry. So actually, in terms of business, it wasn't great, but what it showed us that, it taught us a lot, if you like.
I'd say that one of the things that I've always known about Neale and admired about him, and this is true for everybody I know that knows him, is that he's probably, and I would say, like with quite strong confidence. He's probably the hardest working person I know.
Oh, he is, yeah.
And so it's interesting that you just said that about dropping leaflets and everything, and you know the effort that's involved in it.
It was huge. It was absolutely huge, and the effort, I would say, has what he does, because it's very, very much a he now rather than a we. But what he does has changed in terms of, I think, you know, sort of rise of the internet, the way that social media's gone, etc. Over the last 15 years, it's changed. But his effort and his sort of, you know, work ethic has not changed, and it's relentless. And you know, there are often times, so we're sat here at the end of the garden at the moment in the studio, and the light will still be on, and I'll be in the house, and you know, I might be watching the latest box set, or you know, I'll be sort of stood ironing, and I'll look down the end of the garden, and it'll be half 10, 11 o'clock at night, and the light will still be on, and he will still be working, and 5:30 in the morning, you know, often.
Well, I know, I mean, I'm an early riser too, but not quite as early as Neale, and usually we have our kind of conversations, you know, like 6:30 or something, and I know that he's already been up. But, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned kind of, first of all, you said that, you know, it's him now, but you were part of it for quite a while at least.
Yes.
And actually, you know what, I don't think that it's a partnership anyway, isn't it? Because, you know, you're helping him in other ways that, you know, allow the business to kind of carry on and grow, as Gemma is with me, you know, and so I think it is a partnership thing. But one of the, you know, I know that Neale, I know that he, you know, he's very much, and all of that effort and hard work, you know, has manifested itself in this, you know, your beautiful house and your beautiful family, and the kids are lovely and everything, you know, and does that come with any kind of, is there a compromise? I'm fairly sure that Gemma would say that sometimes on a Saturday in July, she'd quite like me to take Albie to the football or something.
Yeah.
You know, but there are swings and roundabouts, of course, you know.
Definitely, yeah.
And, you know, do you ever find yourself thinking, you know, I just wish that not this Saturday? Is that a thing from your point of view? I
think that because I got used to the idea before having children, if you like, then that's all I've ever known.
Yeah.
And so from my perspective, I'm lucky that my parents are sort of local, and so therefore weekends tend to be, you know, my parents and then the boys, or you know, if we're doing something as a family. But it definitely it makes a huge impact, and there are lots of times, I know, when we've had countless conversations about the fact that you know, he feels he's missed out on a lot of the boys as they've been growing up, and you know, there's that compromise is huge. And there's I know there are other people that we you know, sort of through photography we've got to know, who have actually, they've started in the industry, and after a relatively short period of time they've realised the sacrifices that you've had to make, and they've decided it's not for them, and I can completely see that. And you know, there are times, even from the boys' perspective, they think, oh, it'd be nice that, you know, if Dad was here today, and you know, there are sort of certain moments, aren't there, that you'd actually want to share, which you think, oh, okay. And the flip side is very much that during the weeks he's always around, and you know, we don't whinge and moan from that perspective. This is not a case of kind of, oh, you know, woe is me, isn't this hard, because it's not. But you absolutely have to appreciate that there is that sacrifice, and what we have said is that, okay, if you're not here at the weekends, what can we do during the weeks? So, you know, Friday night, sometimes it might be that we go into town as a family, and you know, we go out for something to eat, or you know, and equally holidays, I think we have more opportunities to do things. And you know, often you look and it might be mum or dad who's going into London, having to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning, not getting back at 8 o'clock at night, whereas actually during the summer, you know, he can look at his diary and he thinks, right, you know, I've got a Tuesday off, what should we do today? Sun's shining, let's go down the beach. So I think you manage your family life according to you know, the commitments of the work diary, and also appreciative of the fact that there are times of the year it might be August that you're thinking, okay, so you've got maybe 10 weddings this month. That means we might not see a lot of each other. But then on the days that you don't have a commitment, make sure you do something on those days and make sure you make those days special.
Yeah, absolutely. And for example, last year you went to Australia for a month, didn't you? So,
absolutely.
I suppose the reason why I brought that up is because, there's going to be a lot of people listening who are part-time photographers currently, i.e. they shoot weddings on Saturday, and then they have a day job as well. And we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, and neither Neale or myself have any issues with that whatsoever. Sometimes I wish I had a day job as well, but the absolute fact of it, and you spoke about it perfectly there, is that it will, if you are at work during the week and you're shooting weddings on a Saturday, it will impact your family life. And a lot of people, if you're young and single, and that doesn't matter so much, but a lot of people, I've seen many of them, they charge reasonable rates but low, so they end up shooting a lot of weddings, 50, 60 weddings, and they just run after the cash, they run after the money, and every Saturday and perhaps Sunday they're working at weddings, and then during the week they've got their day job. They never earn and then they never charge enough with the weddings to get to that point where they can switch off the day job, because they just don't push their prices high enough, and they're the ones that burn out. They're the one. I've seen divorces from it. I've seen carnage, like complete and utter carnage. And both you and Gemma have been at the the boiling pot end, really, I suppose, in terms of watching a photography business start from something completely different, like going to work Monday to Friday, and then all of a sudden it's completely flipped. And there's collateral damage that can happen, but you have to, like you said, you have to prepare yourself, and you have to make compromises that allow you to have a good life with it. For example, like I never work in August. I just, I don't. You guys didn't last year. Neale and yourself have just been on holiday, and we were talking on the podcast earlier about your upcoming holiday and stuff. And that's what you need to do. You need to make time during the week. You need to do that. Otherwise, it can become way, way too much of a burden, I feel.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that, one thing that I think we have learnt, and we've learnt sometimes, that there are times when I don't feel I see a lot of him. He doesn't see that he sees a lot of us. It's very much like...
I see a lot of him these days. Yeah,
you see a lot of him. And, that's really, really hard. And I think there are those times, if you get to that point, then you have to say, okay, how am I going to redress the balance? What am I going to do? Because this is unsustainable. And so I think for anyone that's looking at, the beginning of that journey, not in a sort of patronising way, but it's be prepared to have those discussions and say, this is unsustainable, and just be honest and open about it, and that can lead to some sort of heated discussions, because of course you're both coming from it from a slightly different perspective. You're both seeing that you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, and it might be that actually. So from my perspective, I feel that I'm doing everything. So I'm doing everything around the house. I also have a job, so I'm working during the day. I'm looking after the boys. I'm doing this. I'm organising that. And then obviously from Neale's perspective, he's saying, well, I'm running a business. I'm doing this. I'm juggling that. I'm juggling the other. And normally from our perspective, it's that I will have said something to him, and it will have gone sort of in one ear and out the other. And we do laugh about it. But that's where I have to appreciate, actually, it's relentless sometimes. And when he's juggling as many things as he's juggling, then I have to be prepared that actually sometimes family life does come second. But that I struggle with, because for me it always comes first. So there's definitely areas which that can cause, I suppose, frustration, but equally I think that exists in life generally. So I wouldn't say that was just exclusive to the fact that he is a photographer, a broadcaster, podcaster, etc.
No, absolutely, I totally agree. And it's if you're a brain surgeon or something, that's same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Although you wouldn't have a brain surgeon who just brain surgery'd on Saturdays and did it for really cheap and stuff. But you just said there, he's a photographer or a broadcaster. So Okay, let me ask you this question: if you were to, if Jack and Thomas were in school and somebody said to them, "What did your daddy do?" What would they say these days? Would they still say he's a photographer,
Yeah,
or would they say,
would. Yeah,
he's not a podcaster, broadcaster?
No, I think they would still go down the photography route, because I think in terms of, I suppose it's almost more tangible for them, you know, actually to see him with a camera and to know that on a Saturday he goes out and he shoots weddings and then he comes back and, you know, often he'll be sat editing, and so they will see those photographs. You know, that's an easy thing for them to understand. However, I think I can begin to see that sort of transition, you know, that you know, it's probably, if I look at what he's really enjoying and where he's spending his time most, you know, and I think it's early days, but we've always said that sound is incredibly important to him, and I can't, you know, obviously that comes from the broadcasting background, etc., and it came from when he had the opportunity to start doing the photo films. You know, that was an amazing opportunity to include sound alongside the photography. But you must see him opposite, you know, where I'm sat at the moment is where obviously he normally sits, and I'm sorry that he hasn't let you drive.
I know. I wanted to drive the spaceship.
I know. But he's happy, you know, he's very natural here, isn't he? He's that whole, and I think sometimes he talks about being an imposter in terms of photography, which is a funny thing in a way, because actually he's a very successful, very skilled, you know, photographer in his own right. But I think because he came from a broadcasting career, he almost feels that sort of defines him, and obviously he was very successful. So it's a funny thing, and I'm sure in his head you know, he still feels that he is a broadcaster, and maybe a broadcaster who's been a successful photographer. I don't know, but
yeah, interesting. I suppose, I mean, one of the things that I love about Neale, and it's quite a personal thing, is you know, I know that he has a soft centre. I know that he's very family orientated. I know that you know, he misses his parents deeply, and
he does.
You know, one of the things he often alludes to is that you know, he got his strong work ethic from his father, you know,
definitely,
from his dad, and you can see that, you can see that, and you know, and I know that he still thinks about his parents a lot. Now, here's a quick question: let's imagine Thomas and Jack are Neale's age. Okay.
Yeah.
35 or so.
Yeah, roughly.
And somebody said to Thomas and Jack, "Tell me one thing that your father gave you, your dad gave you, in terms of I'm not on about like a nice shiny pen or something."
Yeah.
What might they say, do you think? Just one.
Oh, you know, I like to pontificate. Well, funny enough, I think it would be a work ethic. I do think they get that. And despite the fact, I mean, Jack's the same age as
Rosa.
Yeah. I want to say Albie, but she's not. It's the other way around.
Yeah, the other way around. Yeah.
So you'll see that transition, I'm guessing, at the moment between being at, you know, primary school age going into secondary school, and probably all the attitude that comes with it. And you know, we're spending a long time at the moment talking about aptitude and not necessarily ability, but actually, you know, in terms of attitude to things, I don't mind whether you are the best, but I care about whether you try your hardest.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think in terms of role models, hopefully, you know, we both, that's what we give them. And, you know, when they see how hard he works, and it, you know, it is relentless, even though at the moment we are having those sort of open conversations because we're sort of pre-teenage and, you know, a lot of it, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's that sort of, you know, that's that drip feed thing. And I think, you know, if we're honest with ourselves, when we were 11 years old, could we hand on heart say, actually, we always tried our hardest?
No.
You know, and actually, you know, it's only in hindsight that, you know, I've learnt about how hard my parents had to work to just really make ends meet a lot of the time. And it's the sort of things that happen behind the scenes, but now I really, really appreciate it, and I think they will too. I think there's a sort of thing when they look back, and hopefully they're on a pint somewhere, then they might turn around and say, do you know what, thank you for all those weekends that you really bust a gut to make sure that we had that extra time during the summer holidays where we could spend time together. But hopefully it is that work ethic that they would think back on.
Yeah, and you know what, I think you might be right. So anyway,
it's like a Neale loving, isn't it?
It's a bit like a Neale loving, isn't it?
Yeah.
I still don't know what Gemma said, so I'm kind of like, I wanted to try and get some decent kind of questions in.
Yeah.
But
at least you've come across as a really nice person. So whatever happened on last week, it's fine.
We may not have any listeners anymore after what Gemma said.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the meeting the other halves segment of the show. I know it was different to what you usually expect from the guests, and we do have some thumpingly good guests coming up. Not that our wives weren't thumpingly good guests, by the way, but I hope what it's done for people is understanding what our other halves go through and what they feel about our businesses and us as people, and maybe that's been useful. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
And you know what? If you have any questions that you would like specifically for the other halves to answer,
don't send it to them.
No, send it to us.
No.
There's a click of fujicast.co.uk, and because there may be those little interviews may have spiked a few queries or things that we never really spoke about or whatever, and they might want the answer.
Really, it'd be like Fight Club. Seconds out, Gemma's back in.
Fight Club, the collective.
Oh yes, PHIGHT. Yes, very good. Right, back to your questions. Was I going first with this?
Yeah, you're next.
Joe Josland in Kent. Hi guys. I like this question a lot actually, and I'm bordering on giving this one the strap. Oh hell, in for a penny. Joe, you get the strap this week, from me anyway. If you could travel back in time, Kev, Neale, to the start of your career, what 3 tips / bits of advice would you give yourself and why? 3 tips. I did actually write some notes on this, so do you want me to go first and then
go.
Go. Well, I would be intrigued to hear yours. The first thing, and I thought was that I didn't do, I had absolutely no social media policy. Now, granted, when I went into photography, I don't know if social media was
It's all yellow pages and stuff then, wasn't it?
It was all, yeah, thank you. It probably was, actually. I went straight for the venues, actually, at a time when people weren't doing that.
Yeah.
And I embedded myself with so many venues that it really kick-started my career. But now I would definitely think of a YouTube channel that was very specific to the type of photography I did. If I was a portrait photographer, I would be making films about portraits.
Marketing them, you'd be doing films about trying to get portrait clients.
Well, I'd be using it from a Google juice, really.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, maybe. I mean, if let's just say you're a portrait photographer, right, and you're shooting portraits 5 times a week, and what are you going to put in your videos? Is it going to be how I shoot portraits?
Yeah.
So the content of the video then is for other photographers rather than trying to attract clients.
It is. But isn't that interesting? Google in my home site as well.
Potentially, but. Yeah, I'm not so sure about the...
Oh dear, I failed dismally on this one.
No. It's interesting because if you type my name into Google, just my name, what comes up is my latest YouTube videos often. Yeah. And, that sometimes that concerns me a little bit because some of them are...
Well, some of them are very technical. Now, I'm suggesting here, if I was doing it again, it will all be about how I want to photograph weddings and things.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not okay.
Well, there's a lot of effort involved as well.
Sorry about that, Joe. That I might have to rethink that one. Second,
I don't want to urinate on your parade or anything. But
second one, I've had to scrap my third one as well now. Second one, I seem to only have one for you, Joe. Buy kit slowly was one I wrote down because I if I honestly had to add up the amount of money I'd like to say the word invested. But I think probably the W word, wasted, would be more appropriate on kit that I really didn't require.
Yeah.
Or maybe bought too early.
Yeah. I think we've all got that, haven't we?
It goes right back to that gas thing, doesn't it? But I think buy kit slowly, think, right, what do I really need?
Yeah.
So I think 2 bodies is not a bad idea. And these days, when you hear so many people talk about 2 bodies, 2 lenses for their documentary work, then that's fine. It would obviously change a bit if you're a sports photographer.
Yeah.
But buy kit slowly.
Yeah.
Go on then. What are your 3? I'm going to have to rethink my first 2.
What was the question again? Was it the 3 you'd have right at the beginning?
If you could travel back in time to the start of your career, what 3 tips and bits of advice would you give yourself and why? Actually, it doesn't. Yeah.
I would say that the number 1 is don't panic. Don't when you're trying to think about shooting weddings and stuff, don't I think Neale's mentioned this before, it's not brain surgery, it's not you're not flying a fighter jet or anything, it's photography. And
what does Zach Arias used to say? You're not curing cancer. The people curing cancer are curing cancer.
Maybe that's where I got it from. Then I can't remember. But yeah, Zach.
I know it's quite an extreme example, but
Zach is zen.
I got it.
Zen of useful. He once said to me, you know what, I know that I'll never photograph the cover of the Rolling Stones magazine, but if one of my students photographs the cover of the Rolling Stones magazine, then I've succeeded.
Wow.
That's great, isn't it? He's such a nice guy.
That's an altruistic way to look at life.
Yeah, but he's a really good educator as well, and that's good. Anyway, so number 1 is I would buy Zach Arias. Number 2, I would buy... the idea about not panicking too much, not worrying about it too much. The gear thing, that's definitely a thing. I have too much gear too. Also, and you know what the other thing always is, and we still see it a lot with people these days, is don't shoot too much. Put your prices up to counter that. Even if it's only a little bit, it's better to shoot 35 weddings at X amount than it is to shoot 60 weddings at X amount plus 1. It really can. I remember shooting 69, and I know you've done more in certain years, but I shot 69 weddings one year, and that was just nearly the end of me. And there are still so many people out there who are so reluctant to nudge their prices up because they want 70 weddings. And it's like, just nudge the prices up a little bit and bring down your amount of weddings you're shooting. It just makes a lot of sense.
I'm going to add another one in here. Always carry your memory cards on you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had 2 experiences of this, not personally. Fortunately, it's not happened to me. But one of my best buddies lost his memory cards in a car park from a car. He'd just put his camera bag and all the wedding into the back of his car. Somebody saw him do that with his car, went to his car, broke in, stole the bag and the cameras and the cards. And then somebody else, recent experience, who puts their memory cards in a small pencil case and left the pencil case on the side at a wedding, and then came back to find that they weren't there.
What, the whole pencil case is gone, or just the cards?
Pencil case is gone.
Oh my god!
So that's the cards.
And
if you're going to do stuff like that, in my cards, I do actually have a little note in there that says, "Have a heart. This is somebody's wedding," and I put a telephone number. Whether that would actually work with somebody that might do that, and
that's such a good idea, though.
Discard it. I just thought, people do have a heart, and maybe that'll appeal to them.
Yeah. Yeah, next time I go back home to Newport, I'm going to put that on my wheels in my car. Have a heart. I need these wheels.
The kids need to go to judo.
Yeah. No, I always, when I finish the wedding, I put, so one of the memory cards stays in my pouch on my body always until I get home, regardless of the petrol station. Yeah. And then the other one is remains in the back of the car, in the camera in the car. So if I get murdered and run off, when somebody runs off with my memory bag,
we could edit your wedding.
You can still edit the wedding. Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
I don't actually stop at petrol stations on the way back. I always fuel on the way out, because I never want to be having to stop in the middle of the night somewhere and somebody saying, "All right, mate, let's have your wallet, please, because I would never argue with them.
No, quite right. But sometimes you do. Sometimes when you're driving back from Scotland, I always come back after a wedding in the UK. So sometimes, but yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't normally stop.
The mini habit. Right, your question.
My question, yes. Richard Murray. Hey, Kevin and Neale, or Neale and Kev. He says Neale Kev. It's like Ant and Dec. Love the podcast. They make me look forward to getting up first thing on a Monday morning.
Who's Ant? Who's Dec?
Who's the one that got in trouble for?
No, don't then. Yeah,
I don't want to be that one.
That's Ant. Go on then. Sorry.
Keep up the good work. My question is: when editing the final cut of images to send to a client, do you go through the images and place them in some kind of order, not just the order they were shot, so they make more of a story visually? Cheers, Richard. No, mine are always in chronological order.
Yeah, mine are too. I don't see why you wouldn't do that.
No. I mean, I have seen some fairly creative photo montages where, they kind of throw in a few of the speech pictures.
Yeah, I get that.
And
people do that in video as well.
Yeah,
well, a lot of videos,
but not the general collection. I would send to the clients always in chronological order. Yeah, and definitely in the album and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna whisk through a few questions here because we've got so many actually in the mailbag at the moment. So Jason Holt, hi guys, great listen, thank you very much. Yada yada yada. There's a lot of rubbish out there. But your knowledge, experience, banter and friendship is completely amazing. I like the friendship bit because that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to my question. I heard you recently talking about batteries and how you get a warning. Warning. They'd actually do that. That would be great, wouldn't it?
I want that on the camera so much now.
If you put your camera battery in. Warning. In the middle of the... yeah, never mind your mobile phone going off.
And it should be in Jonas Rask's voice.
Yes, it should be. I heard you recently talking about batteries and how you get the warning on the X-T3 of not using the Fuji OEM batteries. At the time, I didn't have an X-T3, so I didn't pay proper attention. I do now and want to re-listen. Can you point me to the relevant episode, please? Now, news on that one, because the update, the firmware update, stopped that warning happening, didn't it? Do you remember when you used to put an... oh, no, sorry. No, that's the card. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hang on. Always read the end of the question, Neale. So, yeah. Remind us about the battery, then.
So...
I'll get my coat.
I want to join a professional podcast.
Me too. I want to go and train.
So the battery you'll still get that. So the X-T3, you need to use the NPW126S.
Yes.
You don't need to.
No, you can use the other batteries.
You can still use the other one, but you will get that little notification. And it will actually, if you're really shooting at high shutter speed or you're using 4K film, and you will need the S battery.
It'll chew through that in no time at all.
Yes, but the message you're on about was the Bluetooth. When it used to come up and say, you have pictures on this memory card that were taken on another camera.
Right. It doesn't do that anymore.
Do you want the
firmware update stopped
Correct.
that,
Yeah. So that's all good. Right then. So I have a question, and no name provided. Two questions. Q2 is a little sensitive. Question 1. If shooting RAW plus JPEG, how is your culling process, and how do you organize the images in folder subfolders? There is no way to cull JPEG plus RAW as one file in Lightroom. Am I right? No.
Where's this from?
You're wrong.
I've got a very similar question over here, you see.
No, I just started this by saying this is an anonymous question.
Oh, sorry. I'm
no
not
name.
name. I'm not having a good week, am I? Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Right.
Did Sam say, by the way, because I won't have heard this yet, that I don't listen very well?
No.
All right.
But she was right if she had said that. Actually, yes. She did mention something about one ear in, one ear out.
Yeah. Oh, it's a terrible habit. I'm so sorry. I do love people. Just sometimes it doesn't always go firmly in.
Anyway, so this is an anonymous
right, I get
question.
It now. Non-anonymous.
Question 1. If shooting RAW and JPEG, how is your culling process? There is no way to cull JPEG plus RAW as one file in Lightroom. Am I right? And no, you are wrong, Mr. Anonymous. There is an option in Lightroom, and it's called Treat RAW and JPEG files together. It's in the preferences.
Oh, yes,
so
of course.
click that, and your problem will be solved. Well, question 2. This is the one that is a little bit sensitive, and it says, if asked by your own wife's relatives to borrow the groom's camera and shoot a few for free, when you're invited as a guest.
Right.
What's your response to such a question? What would you say? The scenario happened to me some days ago. I was asked by my partner's relatives the day before a wedding to shoot something for free, and I waved it off politely and said I couldn't do it. As I said, I'd like to be a guest in their wedding, and right now it feels like karma is biting back because the photographer they hired didn't record the speeches, he even missed the toasts. I have a really bad feeling after saying no, and I haven't spoken to the bride and groom yet. Great podcast. You got yourselves a new permanent listener.
You're off the Christmas card list by the sound of it.
I don't think so. I don't think he's got anything to feel bad about. No, absolutely not. No, you know, you're a guest. You I either invite you as a guest or pay you.
That's a good point.
You know, simple as that. I once fell out with a family member, quite substantially, really, because they wanted me to photograph a friend of theirs' wedding, and they were going to pay. They said, you know, we want you to be. We want to gift you to them as the photographer. And I was like, okay, fine. You know, my prices are X. And my family member wanted to pay me X minus 80%, and was quite upset. And I was like, well, look, hang on. So if I did that, what would be happening is that I would be giving them a £1,500 wedding present. You would be giving them a £500 wedding present. I don't even know them. I'm not a guest at their wedding, yet I'm giving them £1,500 worth of my time and effort as a gift, you know. And so I would never feel guilty about it. Don't worry. I mean, I can understand why you're worrying for sure, but the fact that the other photographer messed up is not your fault. No, don't lose sleep over that. No. You know, and just relax, chill,
take a chill pill.
Don't let it happen. Don't let it worry you. That's my advice.
You know how you also always say that people have brilliant names and we don't?
Correct.
Jason Angelini. That's a great name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Angelini. Hello. First off, guys, love the podcast. Both your work inspires me. Photographer for the past 15 years, so you have lots of experience. I find both of your work refreshing, which is very kind of you to say, but... and Jason Angelini, I'm going to spend time on your website, just devouring what you've got now. Kevin, I know that you mentioned you rarely use flash during a reception. Could you expand on your focus technique? Now, this could be, I know often people say too wedding centric, so this could be anytime you need to use flash, but you're not using it. You've got a focus technique. Kev, what is it?
Well, if it's really dark, and you know, it's other people would use a flash, then I'll put the camera in continuous focus mode, AFC, high speed burst. I would use the 2 up from the smallest focus point square in the camera. I'm assuming this is XT3 X Pro 2 kind of qualification. I would set the release priority in the camera for continuous shooting to be on release rather than on focus.
Right.
Okay. And that's it, really.
That's good.
I'd set my ISO to crank up. One thing that I think some people get caught out on is if they're using auto ISO, so they set their minimum shutter speed to 1/125th, for example, and then when it gets really dark and the dancing's on, that 1/125th might not cut it. You might need to go lower than that, and the camera will go lower.
It will override, won't it?
It will override it, but it's still better if you bring it down. So if you're shooting the first dance, it's quite slow, but it's really dark, bring your shutter speed down to a 60th or something.
So manually select your shutter speed. Don't let it do it for you.
Then your ISO will come down as well. So that kind of thing. I mean, you know, street photography or general photography at home, you know, you can use zone focusing. I use that. Zone focusing I don't use so much now with the XT3 because it's so good at focusing in the dark, or not in the dark, but in lower light. But previously on the XT2 and the X Pro 1 and X Pro 2, I would zone focus. So set a focus distance, I don't know, whatever, 2 meters away, and just click away and go for it. Obviously you need to get the exposure right, but that's it. And I mean, I use the Manfrotto Lumimuse, we mentioned that loads of times, but you use flash. What do? You go for it.
Yeah, I only use flash for dancing.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I is it lazy? But I like to drag the shutter. I like the movement of all the lights. And I know it's not a new technique. It's not big. It's not clever. It's not just been reinvented. But I quite like that. So usually an ISO of, I don't know, it depends upon the ambient light in the actual room itself, but 1600, maybe 2000 ISO. Then I will manually focus on f11 for a meter to 3 meters, that sort of range.
What lenses would you be using?
1024. In fact, I think Jason, you mentioned the 1024 here, which it's an f4 lens, but I'm f11 by that stage, so that's what I'm doing. And then obviously rear curtain sync, so that the flash is going off at the end of all that shutter excitement.
Yeah.
And then you've grabbed all your movement of lights, etc.
Yeah.
And you tend to have to face back towards lights because, of course, I know you probably know this, but if you're going with the light action, then you're just going to get blurry images.
Yeah.
So fight the light, if you like.
Yeah.
There's several parts to this question, but because Jason's got such a cool name, we'll allow him. Also, how do you go about explaining to your clients, Kevin, about the style and lack of intervention? While I love the candid nature of the day, then you ever get those that ask for the bride and groom shots or the family shots?
Not so much. I mean, again, we've spoken about this loads of times. I will still do a couple of group shots for sure. And, I was speaking to a couple of clients about their wedding I'm shooting in October, and the conversation nearly always goes the same way. My mum and dad really want, some group shots. And so I just say to them, right, okay, fine, we'll do that. We'll do you and your mum and dad's together. And if you want, we'll also do the bridal party, i.e. bridesmaids, grooms, etc. 2 shots, 5 minutes, done. Nearly everybody that comes to me, because they come via my website, fully understands the style. That's the critical thing. The moment you put things on your website that give you, show off group shots and stuff, then you're going to get people who want those things. My website is as much about attracting clients as it is about filtering ones away. So the fact is, I really very rarely get these questions anymore.
It's just not relevant to you.
It's not. The people that come through just don't want it themselves, and so it doesn't happen.
And if you really do feel uncomfortable about not doing about not having those shots to do, does that make sense? If you really do feel uncomfortable, I'll say that again. If you really do feel uncomfortable about not having those shots on your website, and you feel that you need them for any reason, Jason, then maybe a second shooter. I mean, going back to the Joe Busing thing, his second shooter doesn't shoot the candids. His second shooter shoots the portraits.
Yeah.
He does the candids.
Yeah. And that's when I take a second shooter. On the occasions I do it, they're the ones, like if I do Asian weddings and they want lots of formal shots,
then you ask
I get someone else to come and do it.
In fact, I think I've done your formals on occasions, even though I prefer doing the candids. I don't mind doing it. In fact, I'm... in terms of second shooters at the moment, I'm trying to hire a few second shooters to take over in the evenings.
Yeah,
because I really want my coverage to be longer and longer and longer. But I know I can't do it. I know that I'd lose the will to live if I was thinking, right, I'm here till 12, 1 or 2 in the morning every single time. So
you're getting clients that want that.
More and more. Yeah. Which surprised me because it didn't used to be that way.
No, but I wonder if.
Has a wedding magazine said something about this?
Yeah,
is that what's going on?
But I have noticed a lot of people offering unlimited coverage as well, photographers. Yeah. And so I'm wondering whether there's a competitive thing about that. Anyway,
the competition's maybe breeding that.
And also the thing, Jason, is that, just because I don't particularly do it doesn't mean that you can't be a good photographer, a good documentary wedding style photographer, and still do group shots and portraits and everything. If you like doing it, do it. It's not some kind of written law.
And there's a final part to Jason's thing here. Oh, Jason, you got your money's worth here. Also, a question about both of your photo films. We'll go for Kev's first. Are these add-ons or included? One word answer.
Add-ons.
Kevin, how many images are in the French wedding unedited? Oh, this is the wonderful film you made of. It's like a stop motion one, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the French one,
a hell of a lot in there.
The French one was just under 2,000 pictures, and that's every picture I took on the day.
Yeah.
The second one I did like that, which was the one in Suffolk in September last year, was just under 4,000 pictures.
Wow.
Which was every single picture I took on the day, and I purposely overshot specifically for that.
Did you feel comfortable overshooting?
I did, because they were paying me for it.
Right. So it was for a specific reason.
I'm doing it this Saturday.
Are you?
I've got another client paying for it.
So you're turning out one of those stop-motion photo films? Okay.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Kev's stop-motion photo films, then go to his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And you'll see them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're on your website as well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course they are.
I wouldn't really call them stop-motion, though, because it's not film that's stopped.
No, that's the only thing I can think in terms of stylistic.
I just call them fast motion. Fast motion.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're right. They don't really have a genre.
And there was a question that was aimed towards myself, capturing the audio. Are you connecting a device to the console, or do you have your recording of the speaker, or do you mic the people speaking? So very simple answer to that. I mic the people speaking. The closer you can get your microphone to the talent's mouth, the better, because then you'll get good, clear, strong audio. So that's really, really important. And as for the narration, since you mentioned it, well, I bring it back here and do narration to my nice big mic.
He has got the biggest,
the biggest,
hairiest mic I have ever seen.
Right, this part is very important, needs to be read word for word. I, Kevin / Neale, use the name of the person reading, i.e. Jason Angelini, have determined that this is the best email of the week, therefore I will be sending you... Don't go too far, Jason. You've just hogged about 15 minutes of the show. That's surprise enough, but I'll put you in there for the consideration file. I think we've got time for one more, then that's it for the week.
Okay, so this one is from Dominique Martel.
See, another great name.
I know, yeah. Anyway, hi guys, I love your show, etc. Please continue, etc. Kevin on the Fuji Love Gear Talk magazine, you mentioned in your text gear for street photography.
Yeah.
That's an article I wrote, by the way. Yeah, Fuji Love magazine is awesome. Nothing to do with us, but you mentioned you use the Manfrotto Pixie handheld tripod. On a camera store, I wanted to buy the same tripod to use with my Fujifilm X-T2, but I was told it's too small and not strong enough. I was advised to buy instead the Joby GorillaPod 3K, which is more expensive and bigger. My main goal is to use the tripod when traveling with a small lens like the 35mm f2. Do you think the Manfrotto Pixie is strong enough for my X-T2?
I'd say.
Yeah,
of course.
I'll use it. I mean, you wouldn't want to be sticking the big kind of 16-55mm lens on the front of it, but yeah, it works for me. I use it on my X-T3. Yeah. Maybe
they were thinking Dominique was going to put on the 50 to 140 or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, it does depend a little bit on the lens, on the lenses you're using.
It's all about the lens, I think, not about the camera in that particular. It's all about the lens,
Yeah, I love that little Manfrotto Pixie. Really cool.
Yeah,
I got about 3 of them.
The Joby's good, I use that, but I agree with Kev for that particular one there. Thank you very much for all your questions this week. Guess what they are? They are the...
lifeblood of the show.
Please keep sending them in. It's really important to click at fujicast.co.uk. Click at fujicast.co.uk. Thank you also to our friends at Simpler Straps for letting us give away those camera straps to our favourite questions of the week. Go to simpler.us, simplr.us. Music is from Blue Wednesday. Payoff this week. I guess it'll be Rosa, won't it? Maybe
my dad's Instagram is Kevin Mullins Photography. See his films on YouTube at Documentary Eye. His website is kevinmullinsphotography.co.uk. Or for street workshops, training and everything Fujifilm, go to f16.click.
And for me, it's going to be our little Thomas here.
My dad's Instagram is Neale James. See his films on YouTube at Neale James Photo. His website is neiljames.com for pictures and one-to-one mentoring. And you can hear his other photography podcast, which is called Breathe Pictures, wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, and don't forget his name is spelled Neale.
And a mention, by the way, for the X-Weddings Conference as well, which is coming up in Bath in November.
Yes. Come on. Come along. It'll be fun. There you go. I'm not very good at selling things like that.
There's some great names on there. I know I've said this a couple of times, but I'm really looking forward to seeing Soraya Cordoville talk about her work.
The
work that she does with the NGOs and that amazing African work that she's shot.
And I know there's quite a few people excited by your one-day workshop on video and audio on the X-T3s or the Fujifilm cameras.
Very kind. We will see you next week. See you then.
Goodbye.
Bye.